and it is Indiana in the Morning, presented by First Commonwealth Bank here on WCCS AM 1160, FM 101.1. Our interview with J. Randy Taraborelli is brought to you, of course, by Bradley's Book Outlet in the Indiana Mall. The book is Jackie, Janet, and Lee, The Secret Lives of Janet Auchincloss and her daughters, Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis and Lee Radziwill. Let's say good morning. Hi.
Good morning. How are you?
Wonderful. And thanks for the book. This is a tremendous read. And I know that you have a history with the Kennedy family, and you've really filled in a few gaps in the Kennedy family lore with this one.
Thank you. Yeah, this is actually my third Kennedy-related book, and I also produced two Kennedy miniseries for television. So I've been sort of steeped in Kennedy culture for a long time, and this is a completely different way of approaching Jackie because I wanted to look at her in the context of her family prior to joining the Kennedys. And, you know, the Kennedys are such a big and overreaching and a powerful sort of historical family that we tend to overlook the fact that the women who married into the family had lives before they got there. And that's what I wanted to explore in this book, Jackie's life with her mom and her sister, and also she had a half-sister named Janet that people don't know anything about. And she had a half-brother named Jamie that people also don't know anything about. And Jamie and Janet were at all of the major functions at the White House, including the inauguration and the horrible funeral of JFK and after the assassination. And they were always in the background, but no one ever knew who these people were. And that was my sort of project with this book, was to explore who these people were.
And what a fascinating character Janet Auchincloss is. My goodness. I'll tell you where the book really hit home for me and showed that it isn't just a surface character that we're involved in here, is when she was given the opportunity to lead the fundraising effort for what became eventually the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts in Washington, D.C. We were just there last summer and walking around at a wonderful performance that we attended, and it is absolutely a beautiful building that, as we now understand, wouldn't have been there, and certainly wouldn't have had the splendor that it has without the efforts of Janet Auchincloss.
Well, I'm so happy to hear you say that, because nobody has mentioned that to me in any of the interviews that I've done for this book, and that is really sort of key to understanding, you know, who Janet is, and to understanding that Jackie, who was a very cultured, very intelligent, very creative, an elegant person, you know, got those qualities from her mom, and that her mom is chiefly responsible for, you know, Jackie's persona and for her character. And you see that in the Kennedy Center, and you see that in all of the work that Janet did along with Jackie in the White House, the different fundraisers that Janet was responsible for. And there was a lot that I wasn't even able to include in the book for space reasons, but, you know, many of the rooms in the White House that Jackie restored, she restored with the help of her mother as well. Her mom was very influential, and I really wanted to give Janet credit, you know, because she's been largely overlooked historically.
Her role within the family, and particularly with her daughters, Jackie and Lee, is so key to understanding the women that Jackie and Lee became. And there's a sizable amount of friction between all of them at one time or another, and yet they were able to work through that. And the three of them had a bond that is as strong as any bond, I think, between a parent and their children.
I think so. You know, what I loved about the story is that anytime you have mothers and daughters, you're going to have drama, you know. Mm-hmm. And anytime you have sisters, you're going to have a certain amount of drama. And it's that human drama that I think that we can most relate to, you know, because when you strip away the power, the entitlement, the wealth, the politics, when you strip all of that away and you just start to deal with their humanity and how they trafficked in the world with one another, you realize that you have a lot in common with these historical figures, you know, and also that I have found people reading the book who tell me that, you know, I remember, you know, when something like that happened to me, or, you know, my mother was the same way, or, you know, my sibling did the same thing to me. And, you know, I think that there is a lot to be learned from the experiences of other people. And And that's what I try to do with this book. It's what I have done with all of my Kennedy books, is to try to get past the image and the sort of iconic nature of who they are and deal with who they really were.
We're talking with J. Randy Taraborelli, the author of Jackie, Janet, and Lee. It's about Janet Auchincloss and her daughters. Maybe you've heard of them, Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis and Lee Radziwill. And let's talk about Lee for a moment. What a fascinating character she is, and it's almost fitting that with Jackie having so much of the spotlight here in the United States, for Lee to make a name for herself, she had to cross an ocean. And what an interesting and fascinating life it is that she has led and continues to lead.
You know, you're so right about that. You know, I love writing about Lee, and getting to know her through this book. I think it's so great for people to be able to understand who she is, because she is a woman who has really lived her life. You know, I mean, Jackie was a person who sort of fell into amazing circumstances. She married a senator who then went on to become a president, and she became a first lady, and she just sort of fell into the trappings of global acclaim. Whereas Lee really had to work hard to distinguish herself. She was a fashion designer. She was an interior decorator. She wrote 3 books, actually, and she was an actress. She appeared on stage, and she was on television, and she had a talk show. I mean, she did it all, and she had 1, 2, 3 husbands, and I mean, I think she has lived an incredible life, and against some great odds, because having Jackie Kennedy Onassis as your sister fostered a great deal of competition, between the 2 girls, and so I think that was difficult for her as well.
As you researched the book and you came to the point right after JFK's assassination, and obviously the focus has to be on Jackie there, the way that her mother and her sister rallied around her and the strength that they had to provide to her is truly inspiring. As you were researching this book, and I don't know how you sourced this, but to get inside each of the minds of those 2 women and how it was that they were able to help their daughter, their sister, to come through it all. Talk about that, if you would, for a moment.
Well, yes, I would love to. What was so key to my research was Jamie Auchincloss, who is Janet's only son, and Jackie and Lee's half brother, and he was there. I mean, he's such a crucial part of the story, because he was in the house with them, and he's never told his story. He's never written a book. He's never explored any of his memories. And so, for him to have given me more than 40 hours of interviews, along with so many treasured mementos that are seen in the book, family, photographs and correspondence that he allowed me access to, notes and diaries and so much. I mean, he was really key in terms of me being able to understand his sisters and his mom. And I think when you're an historian and you have that kind of access, it changes everything for you in terms of understanding. And, definitely it's true. Janet said that, Jackie will never get through this without the support of her family. And not just Janet and Lee, but also Janet Jr., the other sister, and Jamie, the brother. And they had this strong core that Jackie depended on, and it's so fascinating that this was a core that the public did not know anything about. Mm-hmm. We certainly didn't know anything about these people, and prior to this book, I think maybe we've never really known about these people. So it's just a great story to be able to tell when you're telling a story that's never been told before.
I love when the fighter's nature comes out in Janet Auchincloss, whether it's at that moment in their lives or advocating on behalf of her daughters or throwing some tough love at them as well. And that really comes through in the relationship that both Lee and Jackie had with Aristotle Onassis. Janet really stepped on the line there for her daughters, didn't she? She stepped up.
Well, she really did. She realized that the 2 girls were competitive, and she was very certain that Onassis injecting themselves into their lives was not going to bode well for them or for her family. And she felt that he would come between the two sisters, and he really did. You know, Lee was with Onassis in 62, and Jackie was with him in 68. And during that 6-year period, he was sort of playing both sisters. And Janet didn't approve of it. And she felt that Jackie was not really in her right mind when she married Onassis. And she was absolutely right about that. Jackie was suffering from PTSD over JFK's assassination, and then more recently over Bobby's. And she was scared for her children, and she felt that if the Kennedys were targets, her children would be next. And all of that motivated her decision to marry Onassis, as well as the financial security that she'd been taught by her mom to seek. So there were a lot of elements involved in her relationship with Ari, and he rescued her from the darkest time in her life, but it did cause a lot of chaos in the family.
Well, absolutely. It's part of a wonderful read provided for us by Randy Taraborelli. Jackie, Janet, and Lee. I'll get it straight one time here, Randy. The Secret Lives of Janet Auchincloss and her daughters, Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis and Lee Radziwill. Thank you so much for spending some time with us here this morning on Indiana in the Morning. It's been fascinating, and it's a great, great book.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me. Thank you.